I am talking to Tyrone legend Sean Cavanagh about his career with Tyrone as a footballer and beyond. Sean, who was your hero in the GAA growing up?
I'd say my hero, probably two. Peter Cavanagh was probably everyone's hero in Tyrone at that point in time, in the mid 90s and early 90s. But if my hand and heart, it was probably a Derryman, and that seems strange as a Tyrone man to say that. But big Anthony Tohill was everything that I aspired to be as a footballer in terms of a midfielder, a scoring midfielder, and just a great stature of winning ball, and a great athlete as well. So he had an awful lot of things in him that I wanted to be, and I used to have a program on UTV called Tohill's Tips. I used to absolutely be addicted to it every time it come on the TV. So I have to say, as much as it pains me, it was a Derry man. Anthony Tohill was my hero.
So then, what was your best position? What would have been your favourable position as a player?
I think I always would love playing midfield because it gave me that bit of freedom. As a strange thing is, my best every year probably playing football was 2008, and I had number 14 on my back. But I used to plague Mickey Hart to try and say to him, let me come out and play out the field because I wanted to get involved. I used to get frustrated when I couldn't get involved in games. But yeah, it's one of those strange ones that I'd say if you ask most people in my best position, they would probably say full forward. But if you ask me, I always wanted to play midfield. But thankfully, I got to spend a bit of time in both areas.
How did it feel playing alongside your brother at a high level? And is there any particular siblings you admire?
Yeah, I suppose whenever you're even playing against them, the O'Shea's and Kerry was always when you have three brothers. We in mid 2000s we had obviously Mark, Dara and Tomas all playing the one team, and then Colin come along with me, and I think it was 2007, his first year. And I remember at the time it was tough on him. He was a young lad, and at the same time people were saying that he maybe was only on the pit or on the team because he was a sibling of mine. But I think he's dispelled that notion through time, and probably some of my proudest moments would have been playing with him. And both of us, I think, around 2014, he was number 8 and I was number 9, playing for Tyrone. So I think that's a fairly unique thing to have a midfield combination of two brothers, and we're incredibly close as well. So it was definitely a highlight of my career.
Who was your biggest rival, both as a player and as a team?
It's probably Armagh. The fact that I went to school over in Armagh as well, over in St Pat's Grammar. I did my A levels there, and I watched them win the All Ireland in 2002, and it was part of the Tyrone team that they beat in 2002 in the first round, and they went on and won it. And it was tough for me as living in the Moy and the border and so close. And obviously my wife now is Armagh as well, so even through that whole time there was huge connections with Tyrone and Armagh, and we were great rivals, and we probably were the peak of our powers through the mid 2000s. So I'd say Armagh were always the main rival, and in terms of an individual, there probably were a few in that team, but you had to look at the likes of a Kieran McGuinney or a Paul McGree, and those were the iconic players for Armagh at that point in time. And if I remember Mark and Kieran in a couple of games, and you generally got the feeling that if you got the better of Kieran McGuinney, you almost got the better of Armagh. It wasn't an easy thing done, but at the same time there's some great battles.
So do you think that two matches would have defined both years?
The 2003 and 2005?
2002.
Oh, 2002. I think it was right. Armagh were probably a little bit ahead of us in terms of development at that point. We could have won that game in 2002. They probably could have won the game in 2005, but there was a trilogy. It was the 2002. There was the two games. There was the final in 2003, which was iconic, as two Ulster teams playing the All Ireland final, and then there was the three games in 2005. And I'd say between those 3 years, okay, they probably deserved one of the years. I would say that anyway, but they had the better of us in 2002, and thankfully we had the better of them in 03 and 05. So I think as a whole we maybe have the bragging rights.
How much do you feel that Mickey Hart had an influence on your career, and do you feel that you learned anything from Mark McCrory?
I I actually learnt an awful lot from Art and Eugene. So my first year in the senior panel, Art and Eugene were there, and even though it was only a year, particularly Art was a very hands-on coach, and someone who took an awful lot of time to try and develop your individual games. So remember, Art took me along with maybe Peter Cavanagh and Stephen O'Neill was there at that point in time, and did an awful lot of individual coaching around how we ran in the forward line together and how we played together. So no, Art taught me an awful lot, and probably told me a few home truths as well. I was probably overweight in 2002 as well, and Art wasn't long in calling me out in that one. But look, Mickey come in 2003, and he, I think it's well known now that he had that winning mentality with him, and it probably was just the right time. He took on a group at that point in time that was all coming from the minor teams that had won in 98, and the under 21s that had won in 2000 and 2001, and then my minor team had won in 2001 as well. So there's a serious crop of players, all very young, coming in that one point in time, and Mickey had that Midas touch. He just taught us how to win and got us over the line. But I would certainly say an awful lot of that winning was down to Art and Eugene as well, because they had developed that team for a few years beforehand, and said it was just good timing.
What made you make the decision to retire from county football?
I was getting too old. Simple as that. No, look, I'd played a long time, and it was getting more difficult as it naturally does. You get older, and I had a couple of kids at that point in time, and it just was getting too busy. It was and had won all I'd won in the game. I thought I'd given everything I possibly could, so I certainly walked away with very little regrets. I would have liked to have captained an All-Ireland winning team. That was something that drove me crazy. I wanted to win in 2016 and 17 more than anyone did, but at the same time, when I took a step back, I realised I was incredibly fortunate with everything I did win. So it was easier to walk away knowing that I left nothing behind me, and hopefully had a positive influence than the lads that are still soldiering away at the moment.
What do you think made Moy able to win the All-Ireland, and do you think that smaller clubs could achieve this goal?
There's no doubt in that. You know, the Moy All-Ireland win, I put it down as one of my highest achievements. And whenever I hear people now talk about a Tier 2 competition and it not being something that they would drive them to win, I can't understand it, because whenever we played in the All-Ireland final with the Moy in February 18, and it was 9,500 people at Croke Park, it was empty, but to me it was as good as standing there with 82,000 against the Carrier and Armagh, because it was everyone that you love and everyone that you see at whether it's at the shop or the butchers or chapel, or it certainly meant an awful lot. It's a very intimate thing, and yeah, I think it's the GA ultimately, if you strip away all the razzmatazz with Croke Park and the big county games, it's all about our communities, and everyone has a community centre, and everyone has people that they rely on for the rest of their lives, whether young or old. So to win with the Moy really epitomised everything that was good about communities and GA, and you know that in itself is probably the most important thing in football.
How did you get involved in the Sunday game?
I was offered a chance by the producer of the Sunday game. He had actually made contact with me during my last year of playing, and look, it was something that I knew I was going to have a bit more time in my hands, and I maybe wanted to continue to be involved at county football level, and thankfully now it's given me that chance to see the other side. Whenever you're playing yourself, it's you can sometimes get caught up in just what your team's doing, but now I get a bit of a chance to appreciate some of the other teams, including Armagh.
What are you seeing yourself doing moving forward, being such a young coach or young manager? Would you have any?
I'm not sure. I'd say if you ask my wife, I'd say she'd probably tell you that I'll not be doing too much coaching. I've spent enough time, but look, I'm very busy with my work, with my business here. I'm opening up new offices at the moment there, and I'm busy at home with 3 kids. I'm doing a bit of the Sunday game. I'm still playing a bit of football myself. Obviously, I'm doing a bit of coaching.
The great question then would be, how many children did Art McCrory have?
Well, that's it. I'm not sure many more children I'll have, but it's no, look, I'm enjoying doing every little piece of that now. Whether I go into coaching, I'm actually looking forward. My son is now 1, and I'm looking forward to he gets 2 or 3 or 4, so I can spend a bit more time with him and hopefully teach him a thing or two down the line. And I think the next best thing for me now is hopefully watching him play football and getting to spend a bit of time, because when you're involved in county football, it can be a selfish thing. You spend all your time on you, and probably the 2 girls didn't get as much attention as what they deserved growing up.
Okay. I would like to thank you for the interview and hope you have a successful career moving forward.
Thank you very much, Brian. Good to see you again, sir.
Yeah.